This is a show about facing fear, unlocking courage, and taking action.
Courage isn't necessarily a daunting thing.
It's going to give you more purpose. It's going to give you more drive.
It feels like making a courageous decision is going to get you closer to who you aspire to be.
It's knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage.
Marketing isn't going to be just the magic wand that you wave and like fix the problem. Marketing brings them in and operations brings them back. I'll get them in the door. Once they get in the door, I need you and your teams to then go deliver a great experience. So when they walk out and then they see another Chili's ad, they're like, yeah, I'm going to come back. I'm going to go tell 10 people about it.
The origin story of Courageous, the business, was founded off of the premise of courageous ideas are the only ones that matter. And as we followed that narrative, we realized fast, oh shoot, courageous ideas die without courageous leaders. And the problem for us got much bigger and the aperture got much wider on the business. Our guest today is living both. The man your man could smell like for Old Spice or 11 Herbs and the Spice Girls for KFC. And he's doing it again, folks, as the CMO of Chili's. Welcome to the show, George Felix. What's up, George? How are you, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Ryan. Great to be here with you guys. What's up, Billy?
And again, there's a you guys he's already mentioned. This first of all, this is where I want like an audience track to clap after like that, because like you deserve a laugh track or a welcome to the show. And yes, I normally don't get to bring a co-host on with me, but it just seemed to make sense. Like you and my business partner Billy Collins have gone way back for a while now. Yes, Billy, how long has it been?
20 years. We almost met 20 years ago. I think I remember meeting you in the lockers at Keenan Flagler Business School and talking about wanting to work in marketing. And you said, oh, I've already got an offer at P&G. So it was like before school and classes had already started. I'm like, who is this dude? And who is this rock star that I got to know? And then you turned out to be smarter and better even after that first interaction. So
Not true. But yes, we go way back. I can't believe it's been that long. I've not done that math. But we had a great marketing crew at UNC. There was tons of great people. So,
George, let's be real. I mean, this is the Courageous podcast. He was like, who is this dude that's already dropping that he has a job? Not who is this rock star? I think it's more accurate.
I can't believe I said that. That's such
I have to be fair. I kept pushing George. This was not like George entered the conversation with that. We were talking, that kind of thing. Where are you going? Have you thought about it? Well, he sheepishly is like, well, actually, I had gone to brand camp at P&G. And I was like, oh, how'd that go? Was that fun? It was interesting. Yeah, it was good. I got an offer. And so I'm like, way to go. So way to bury the headline. So, but no, George was not walking around with the offer sheet in hand, but more of a clear mark on someone who knew what he wanted to do. And I think his potential and excellence was easily recognized by many. So.
Wow. Thanks,
George, it's really easy to see now. I mean, like you kind of like everywhere you're gone. You're like the leprechaun at the end of the rainbow. Like everywhere you go, it's like there's a turnaround moment. And I mean, Old Spice, let's go back to Old Spice. Let's just start there. Like when you're there, like, and I imagine at P&G from what I remember hearing, it was sort of like this other brand that is all the way over here that nobody wanted to like, I don't know if they didn't want to touch it, but you took it on. What was life like is that accurate, by the way?
I mean, for one, it was very fun. It was a great brand to be on. And I interned there. So, when Billy and I were in business school, like that summer between our 2 years, that was where I interned. And they just, they kind of randomly assign all the interns to brands for the summer. So you have 12 weeks. And I got assigned to Old Spice. And I remember a lot of the other interns in the class, when, you go around, like, oh, what, you're meeting people, what brand are you working on? And a lot of the reaction was like, oh, like you kind of got the short straw because, the big thing at the time was like to be on $1 billion brand, right? You want to be on a Tide or a Pampers, just like these huge mega brands. And so Old Spice was definitely very small in comparison. And so, yeah, I mean, it was, I don't know if afterthought's the right word, but it was definitely a smaller brand in the portfolio. And the other thing that was interesting is like, if you look at P&G's brands, the vast majority of them are geared to women, right? And mostly marketing to moms. They had two or three like brands that were kind of male focused. Gillette, which was new at the time, that that acquisition had just recently happened, Head and Shoulders and Old Spice were really there. There might be some others that were kind of appeal to both, but those were kind of the three. And so that was also different because like the big scale of P&G in terms of how they bought media, right? Like they're buying on programming, generally speaking, that's targeting women. That was not a benefit to what Old Spice was doing. So yeah, it was an interesting brand to be on. And to be honest, the brand wasn't doing super well at the time when I got there.
Yeah, I've got to be careful because this could become a "This Is Your Life" episode a little bit because as we're tracking your career. But yeah, I can't help but put myself also in early days of my career. And you're like, you would think you would want the big brands that everybody knows. You're almost borrowing equity from these big brands. So when you're finally with your friends, when you're back with Billy having drinks, right? Well, I'm working on P&G, right? But actually, like as the older you get, the more you realize, like, wait, there's so much more you can do with a brand like Old Spice at the time. And again, here we are at Chili's, right? Is that part of the strategy now?
Yeah, I think it's true. You know, I don't know if Billy felt the same way, but like when I was in business school and like thinking about where I was going to go work and like what my marketing career was going to look like, there was a lot of times where you'd sit there and you make your lists and you're just writing like brands like you were just describing, right? Like the big behemoth brands that everyone knows and super sexy brands, whether it's like Nike or Apple or things like that. And, you know, that all does sound really fun and really good. But I've, you know, like the way that it's ultimately like shaken out, I wouldn't change anything because the brands I worked on were kind of underdogs and that gave us license to kind of do things differently and break the mold a little bit and take more risks. So I think sometimes there is a, you know, like a difference in like the perception and reality of how that's going to work out.
You know, Ryan mentioned that part of our genesis is this idea of courageous ideas, and they're the only ones that work. They're the only ones that matter. Take us back to some of those conversations. It could be on Old Spice, it could be on other brands, where you knew you were pushing for the right idea. You knew you were pushing for the courageous idea. How does that team dynamic work? How does the internal alignment work? Agency, again, sort of a broad question, but maybe share some examples of how you've, even early in your career, saw or witnessed those ideas getting momentum.
The biggest one for me that's like probably had the biggest impact on me in my career was on Old Spice, just because it was like literally the first thing I worked on. And it was, I was the assistant brand manager on Body Wash, and Unilever, which owned Axe, was already kind of kicking our butt in that category. They disrupted the whole category. And then they were basically going to be launching a new men's line with the Dove brand, which was already this amazing $1 billion, you know, success on the women's side. And they were basically going to make Dove for men. And so it was like this kind of moment of, if we don't do something, we are going to lose distribution in Walmart and Target, which is not, you know, that's kind of the death knell for that. And so we had a short amount of time. It was like, I don't know, September, October, and they were going to be launching the Super Bowl. And so we just had a few months. It was kind of unplanned. And so it was, what are we going to do? At P&G, they called it ProFense. It was like a proactive defense for a competitive launch. What are we going to do to, you know, combat this big competitive launch? And so we briefed our agency. We worked with Wieden & Kennedy, which is just an incredible agency, and I worked with amazing people there. And we briefed them, and the brief, you know, one of the things in the brief we thought was a minor detail in the brief, but they really latched onto, is that it was the insight that like 60% of men's body wash is purchased by a woman, be it a mom, a wife, a girlfriend, whoever. And so they said, hey, if Dove is coming into the men's space, then the 60% of women that are buying men's body wash, a lot of them probably are already buying Dove for themselves. They're probably going to make this very easy for them to now buy Dove for men for their guys. And so that was where the swing thought was, that they told us was like, hey, we think you guys actually need to talk to both men and women. You have to figure this out, because we've only talked to men, obviously, and prior to that. And so they presented this whole idea. They presented two ideas. One was the man your man could smell like, and the other was this other idea of like the evolution of man, and it was more about leaning into masculinity. And we actually bought the other idea. the masculine. And so the next day, so you want to talk about courageous, the next day the agency at Wyden & Kennedy came back to us, and I've never seen an agency do this. They unsold their idea, and they said, we did not do a great job presenting the idea. We think this other idea is better. Give us one more chance to like talk through this. And they pitched the other idea. And if you remember the Man Your Man Can Smell, like it's a very complex, there's a lot of things happening. And so when you read it on a storyboard, you're not only reading the script, but you're reading these descriptions of all these things that are happening in the background. And like the shower lifts up and then a sweater drops on him. And then he's got a clam in his clamshell. And then he's on a horse. And like just reading that storyboard, we did not know what was going on. It just felt like completely chaotic. And like, we didn't know what was going on. And they said, we didn't present it the right way. So they came back, the creative actually like talked us through the storyboard and then just just without all the stage direction, just read the script like the way that they envisioned it. And all of a sudden it started clicking and we started to see what they saw. And so I think that experience and then going through it and making the ad and casting the ad and all that stuff, like it required my brand manager at the time, James Moorhead, was like such a champion of the creative and like getting people on board and feeling comfortable with in hindsight, it seems like a no-brainer, but at the time it was a very kind of risky idea to go make because it was just so different than anything you'd seen before. So just getting to be a part of that whole process, I think, was really educational for me and kind of instilled in me that that's just the way things worked versus thinking that was the outlier.
Well, I love, there's so many good little nuggets in that share of a story. I mean, one, I've had my moment with clients where I'm like, I am never bringing a safe idea into the room again. Like you have the idea that because you work for them that you're supposed to bring like, this is the right on the strategy. And then this is sort of in the middle. And then we're going to walk the plank and we're going to take you all the way out here. And so the lesson for on our side is like, no, like don't even waste their time. Don't waste your time. Like if there's real trust, that's a fear-based decision, right? Which we do. Yeah. So, and then the fact that they unsold and that you were able to unsell as well. You were able to like, okay, we trust you. We're going with you. And it brings me, think about where we started. A couple of smart guys met in a smart place, right? In a smart school. And then here we are. Sometimes smart is strategy and story is stupid or simple. We'll call it simple or soulful, right? Right. If we're going to break through with America, right? It's sort of like, okay, do it again, Wyden. And so I'm curious now, George, for all that smart, at what point were you on a set somewhere where you're like, I'm going to get fired for this? Was there a moment?
Oh yeah, there have been several moments. I guess I'll say like, so when we were at KFC, we did this whole thing with bringing Colonel Sanders back, and it was, like, how do we get back to the roots of the brand? And we felt like that, like the Colonel was important, and the brand had walked away from him after he'd passed away, which is a fairly logical decision. But we felt like that, like the soul of the brand was kind of lost without him, and so we wanted to bring him back with celebrities, and so we had different celebrities playing Colonel Sanders, and this went on for years. We had several tons of people play the Colonel, and there was one time we had this concept. We were launching this. It was the KFC was getting into chicken sandwich. We were launching this big chicken sandwich. It was called the Zinger, and we wanted to make this big deal about it. And it was like, we're going to send this chicken sandwich to space, and we're going to use the old John F. Kennedy speech, and we're going to have this like, astronaut colonel. It's going to be majestic, all this stuff. And the idea originally was written for Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker. And it was like in that time when they were releasing the last 3 of those Star Wars that they made. And it was just going to be this whole thing, like Luke Skywalker, who doesn't love Luke Skywalker and all this stuff. And so I think he was really interested, but then with all the Star Wars stuff going on, he wasn't able to do it. And so it kind of threw us into a tailspin of like, what are we going to do? You've got like a date, right? There's no, you can't push it. Like this thing's launching, like whether we want to or not. And I showed up to the shoot without a colonel. like there's no colonel signed. And we're front loading the shoot so that we shoot all the other extras, because it's going to be like the colonel giving the speech, and then you're just panning to different parts of America, and they're watching him and reacting. So we're like, okay, we can buy like 2 more days of getting all the other stuff done, but we need a Colonel Sanders at some point. And we're going through things, and I was talking with our agency. We're brainstorming, and one of the creatives, Heather Ryder, she's an awesome creative. She and I shared a love of The West Wing as like one of our absolute favorite shows, and so we were, I think, just like talking about that, and then we're like, wait, what if we go back to The West Wing? What if we find someone there? And that's where the idea of Rob Lowe came from, and we like pitched the idea, and like it felt like he could pull this off and be the right kind of person to do it, and he was available, and it all just kind of came together like super last second. But I will say, being on a commercial shoot for KFC when the main character of the ads is not cast yet, that was a moment that I felt like I might get fired.
That feels fair. That logical fear there. We talk a lot about fears. I feel like that's a fair fear.
It all worked out somehow, but that was one time that I probably felt maybe it wasn't going to work out.
You know, we touched on the fact, I think about the different brands you've worked on, and probably everyone in America has touched one of those brands, but they're also very different, right? So you got Old Spice, you've got KFC, you worked at Tinder, you've got Chili's. So again, lots of different sectors, lots of different types, whether it's, I can do the alphabet soup of CPG and QSR and all that fun stuff. But Talk a little bit about the similarities between managing those brands, what holds true, and then maybe share a little bit of the like, oh, I didn't realize, but I have to think about this in some of these other sectors.
Yeah, it's been really interesting, and I feel like I've learned things at each stop. I think starting in consumer packaged goods at P&G, I think the thing that I've carried through all of them is like P&G is kind of like getting another MBA, honestly, like with the amount of training, like that they give you and all of that. And I think the big thing that I've taken with me at every stop is like the brand positioning, the brand on a page. They used to call it a brand pyramid. And it's like really defining who you are as a brand and what you stand for and what your purpose is, all those things. And then using that as a filter, like a North Star, to guide decisions. It's not just a marketing thing. It should be guiding decisions for your brand. And so that is something I think is consistent across. It doesn't matter, I think, what sector, what category you're in. If you don't have that defined, I think you're going to be in trouble. I think on the flip side, some of the things that are different across consumer packaged goods versus like, food, whether it be QSR, casual dining, or tech, is like the speed of things, like, and the way that things happen. So again, going back to Procter & Gamble, your time horizons are huge, right? It's a massive company, and you're talking about massive brands. And so like to make new products, like you're talking about years of R&D and development and testing and package development and product development. And then the way that they work, like, just even developing the communications, like all that stuff is very drawn out. And then like the horizon that you're measuring success on is also drawn out. Like you're not really looking at results, you're tracking things on a weekly basis, but you're really looking at it on a much larger time horizon. Whereas like, I'll never forget at KFC, we launched the first Colonel Sanders campaign, and I had not been there very long, just a few weeks. And then literally like day 2, I had people in my office. They're like, all right, what are we thinking? How's it working? Like, what do we need to change? And I was like, what are you guys talking about? Like they're like, well, like we got the sales report. Like, is it working or not? I'm like, it was just shocking to me. But like, then, you realize that in food and retail, like you get a report card every morning, right? Like every morning, it's like, I know exactly what time I'm getting the sales report, and I know, are we above, are we below, like all that stuff, right? And you are tweaking things like that fast, right? Like if it's not working in the first week, probably not going to like magically start working in week 2, right? So I think that's very different. I think the things I've enjoyed about restaurants compared to consumer packaged goods is we have physical locations, right? And we can control that. That's another part of the branding we can impact with the consumer, whether that be the physical building, that's the things we put in there, the menus, the team member uniforms, like all that stuff. Whereas consumer packaged goods, you're kind of, you have a little piece of branding in the retailer, but it's really, up to the retailer. And then on tech, it was like super interesting because it was like, man, to update, 1,100 restaurants in the case of Chili's, if you want to go remodel them, right, that's going to take years and years and years, right? Like, I mean, it's going to take us, the next 10 years to remodel our entire estate. At Tinder, you made a change to the app. It could be look, it could be functionality. And when that update goes up, everybody that uses Tinder, it changed like overnight, right? And that is really fascinating and like interesting as a marketer to be in that environment. So, there's a lot of things that tie through, and I think they're the core fundamentals of like building a brand and how you communicate. And I think those are consistent across categories, but some of the other nuances have been really interesting.
Yeah, George, you talked about your access to data, and modern marketers have access and almost in real time, right? Yeah. But some places, the best research still comes from being human. Like, I don't think there was a lot of data to say, let's have 20 different celebrity colonels over. Like, where's the data to support Norm Macdonald one day and Jim Gaffigan another? Yeah. Or, so when someone comes into your office, right, how do you still, to use the word, stay courageous and go, hey, sometimes it's not about data, it's about gut. Like, let's hold this and it became the thing. How do you navigate those two worlds?
I think you got to blend the two. So I think if you skew too far, if you're always on one end or the other, then, it's probably not like optimal. So I would say, when, now as like I have a team that's bringing me lots of ideas and strategies, I think I always look to make sure that they've done the homework on, do they understand like the business case around this and the data that supports why we might want to go down that road, but then are also bringing in like those other, like things that are less tangible, right? Like, if it's a creative idea, like what is sparking that? What is your gut reaction when you see it? Like, are you laughing immediately? Does it feel like it's bringing joy? And it's in that happy place that Chili's wants to be. And it's like, you can't necessarily quantify that, but like there is that gut reaction. I still think that it's really important to, like, when you're looking at creative, to always give that first feedback, like whatever it is, like you can have more time to think about it, but like in the moment, like what was that gut reaction to it? And like, what did that creative make you feel? I think that's super important. But yeah, I mean, there are times where like, yeah, you're not going to have the data, especially like now social media, like we have an amazing social media team, and like, there's not going to be like if you're asking them for data on like what we should post on a daily basis or how we should respond or all that stuff, like I just think you're just missing the boat completely. And so that's where like you have to trust that you've got the right people, like, behind the wheel, and like they know that space and they know the space better than I do for sure. Like they're educating me. I know the guardrails of where we want to be as a brand, so I can give them some feedback on that. But ultimately, a lot of times if it's between 2 or 3 posts, it's like, guys, I think those are all great. Those are all great for Chili's. I'm going to trust you guys to say what you think is going to be best, and we go. So yeah, I think you've got to mix the two, and sometimes you're just not going to have data to make a call. And the other thing, like I think that makes it easier to take risks is like thinking through the downside. I know that sounds weird when you're trying to sell something, but like to me, I think that shows something, like that shows that someone's thinking through things critically to say, guys, here's why I think this is going to be a great idea, but there is this scenario where it doesn't go well and it doesn't go as we planned, and here's what we would do in that case. And it's like, okay, if it's a two-way door, and if this happens and we've got to revert, this is and I'm comfortable with that, it's much easier. So I know it's not usually the first thing you think of if you're trying to sell something, but sometimes just like even showing that you're thinking through both the upside and the downside is helpful.
Last time we talked, George, about your process at beginning at Chili's and sort of this idea of data versus sort of getting to know what makes Chili's versus understanding, like you said, the brand experience is more than just the food on the table at a place like Chili's. Can you talk a little bit about, clearly The business results have been amazing at Chili's. You guys are on fire in a time where that's not the same for people in your category, in your industry. But what I found interesting was how you and your team sort of began that journey before this growth to set a better foundation. Can you talk a little bit about why you knew what you did, why you knew it was the right step, et cetera?
Yeah, I think there were probably two big things we did up front. One was learn about the brand and really immerse ourselves in the history and the DNA of the brand. And thankfully, Chili's is 50 years old, but we still have like the founder and the Doug Brooks, who's the guy that was the first manager of the first Chili's and then became the CEO of our company. And he's got an office in our building. And so like talking to these guys, hearing the stories, like learning like when Chili's was at its best, what was it all about, really getting into the DNA of the brand and then being able to define the North Star, like I was talking about before. So I think that's super important. I think the other thing is like really getting into restaurants and talking to our team members. Our CEO, Kevin Hochman, is like he spent his first 3 months on job just traveling the country, talking to team members and like really listening and doing listening sessions to understand like, how does it feel to work at Chili's right now? Like what's getting in your way of like delivering a great experience to our guests? Like what are the things that are broken in the restaurant and like from an operational procedure? And so for us, it's been very focused on how do we make, our strategy's all been about great food and drink in a great atmosphere with Chili head hospitality and investing in our team members. And it's like those four things have been what we've been focused on since day one. And so for us, like it doesn't matter how good the marketing is if when you get someone to walk into a Chili's, if the building is, broken down and it has a leaky roof and there's not enough staff so that, you're waiting for someone to come greet you at the door and then the food quality isn't what you want it to be. Like it doesn't matter how good the marketing is, that you're going to get them in, they're never going to come back. And so before we really turned the marketing on, it was how do we go really deep on the experience? And that was a cross-functional effort. And I think that's important that like marketers don't see their job ending as like just about talking about the brand and the messaging of the brand, but we need to live the experience so that we know the things we can do to help them deliver that experience, but also then, talk about that, externally. And so we've invested, hundreds of millions of dollars into restoring our restaurants and getting more, team members in our restaurants so we can properly handle the volume. We've invested a ton back into making our food and our drinks better. We've cut 25% of our menu, which is weird. Normally when you're growing, you're adding things to your menu. We've actually taken things off our menu, but that allows us to focus on the things we want to be better at. And so all of that has added up to, our guest experience now is so much better than it was 3 years ago. You see that in Google scores, you see that through our internal metrics and across everything, food quality, hospitality, all those measures, clean. And so then when we did turn the marketing back on, probably 6 months to a year into this, we weren't fully to bright on that, but we had a much better feel that like we can deliver a good experience. And then over time, it's like we're just maniacal about it. And like, yes, we made progress, but like we're still focused on what are the things we can do differently. And like we're doing listening sessions in restaurants. Like somebody from our leadership team is in a restaurant every week. And we're getting those reports back and we're getting that feedback back from our team members. And now they know we're listening, so they feel more empowered to give us the feedback and tell us what help they need. So to me, it's been the most rewarding because I feel like I'm much closer to the business than I've been in the past, which has been really great.
George, what you just shared is why I left advertising as we once knew it. And so I'm going to rant for a minute because I'm curious to get your perspective on does it hold true still for you? Because we're moving so fast, right? So, but I could tell you I left because I felt we were at the end of the conveyor belt and I couldn't make the impact I wanted to make. And it was like someone would call me asking, "Can you do this? Can you launch this for this price?" Now they didn't say it like that. You never say it like that, but that's what was really said. Can we do this? We're sliced bread. Tell the world we're sliced bread at this price. And I'm like, I haven't hung up yet. Can I come interview the culture? And they'd be like, what? Like, no, can you do this for this price? And it's like, wait a minute, you're like leaving all this word of mouth opportunity. Like, what if I tell a story to the outside world that's not true to the inside? Or like you said in the Chili's case, like I'm gonna bring everybody in, and then if it doesn't deliver on the premise, they're gonna talk smack about us, guess where? On social, on all the places. And if word of mouth, your own internal, it's like a retention tool. If you get it right, they're part of the process, right? So I didn't love how far down the conveyor belt we were. It was like we weren't allowed to look behind the curtain on the other side of the conveyor belt where business is happening. So, in some ways it's sort of sad that we had to I basically had to eject myself out of my last life and become a courage expert just to be a creative business person. I think that's how we see ourselves. And we want to help leaders get their story straight by co-creating that story, by listening, by taking it all through word of mouth, through all the people, and then market that to the outside world. Now, what I wonder from you, truly, is the flaw like we're moving so fast, we still need to tell stories to the outside world because we need to generate awareness and revenue? Or how long should that first part be? Is it a year of listening? Is it 6 months of listening? Is it 6 months of listening and creating that experience? So one, does this land with you? And then two, how long is that process?
Yeah, it definitely lands. I mean, I think that the best way that I've learned, and I learned this at Yum Brands when I worked there, the best way to describe it, I think, is like our job as marketers is driving sales overnight and building brand over time. And the challenge is you have to be doing both at the same time, right? Like you can't be like, hang on, the sales are going to come. Just let me build this brand for 3 years, right? And then if you're so overly focused on sales in the short term, you're going to make a lot of bad decisions that are going to, degrade your brand over time, right? So that is the trick, that you are always balancing. How am I driving sales overnight and building my brand over time at the same time? So like your question about how long does it take, like that is the friction there, right? Because like you can't wait too long, right? You have to put points on the board and you have to be doing things. And so I think as long as you are like making progress on both, I think they can both happen. There might be a period of time where you are solely focused on improving the experience and investing in that. But like I said, like we weren't fully to where we are now, 2 years ago. But we turned on marketing at that point because we needed to. Like we needed to drive people into Chili's and we needed to drive traffic into our restaurants and start getting back out there. But we felt confident enough that we had made the improvements necessary so that, we felt like we were going to deliver a good enough experience that if they did come in, they were, likely going to have a good experience and come back. Now, it's better, had we waited 3 years, like, yes, it would have technically been a better experience now than it was 2 years ago, but we didn't have that time to wait, right? So I think it's just more of the acknowledgement that, marketing isn't like going to be just the magic wand that you wave and like fix the problem if you're not working hand in hand on improving the experience. So the thing we say, I have a very close relationship with our operations team. Aaron White and Doug Cummings are they lead operations for our company, and like we're very close. And the thing we always say is marketing brings them in and operations brings them back, and it's like this partnership that we have to have between the two. And it's like I can pass the baton to you once they get in the door. I'll get them in the door. Once they get in the door, I need you and your teams to then go deliver a great experience. So when they walk out and then they see another Chili's ad, they're like, yeah, it was that good, and I'm going to come back. I'm going to go tell 10 people about it. And so I think that for me has been a really kind of new experience for me in this role.
George, you've said throughout, I think multiple times you said the we, right? And what you just talked about there is this idea of partnership across the organization. And I think we all know how critical that is to success, to build to partnership, whether it's with external agencies, whether it's internal team, whether it's leadership, whether it's alignment there. Would love for you to kind of share your thoughts on what are the traits that you try to surround yourself with, right? Either people who are working for you or people you work for, work with, whatever. What are some of those traits that you say, look, this allows us to have that dialogue, push to a new place, right? And do hey, we're going to bring people in and we're going to keep them in. Like talk a little bit about the qualities of people that you gravitate towards.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about like, building like my team, things that I'm looking for, obviously there's like the kind of no-brainer stuff of like, hey, I need people that are going to be experts in a particular area, right? And so if it's the marketing team, like, hey, I'm going to need media experts, I'm going to need creative experts, I'm going to need culinary innovation experts, and that's kind of like table stakes, like, that kind of just you need to, like kind of just to start the conversation. I think beyond that, though, you're looking for people that believe in culture, like the importance of culture and like living it, not just like words on a page or words on a wall or whatever that is. Like the people that like are bought in and understand, like, at the end of the day, we're slinging fajitas and margaritas. Like we're not, this isn't this isn't like life-changing stuff, right? Like at the end of the day, like Chili's exists to make people feel special and give people a great experience where they can go out with their family or friends, not worry about things for an hour, and have great food and great drinks at a great price. So like at the end of the day, like that is what we do. And so it's not to make that like feel, any bigger than it needs to. But I think the idea of like the culture we have it goes beyond that, right? It's like this idea that, we are bought into not just that, but like we want to create a culture where, I say like on my marketing team, like I want to create a place where people can do the best work of their lives while being at the best for the ones they love. And so like I want people that believe in that. And so like if you are a leader that I'm going to bring into my organization, I need you to believe in that, and I need you to lead people that way and give them the flexibility to be parents and husbands and wives and do the things they need to do outside of work, so that when they are at work, whether that's physically or working wherever, they can give their best to Chili's on the hours of the day that they need to, but they can also feel like they can give their best to the other people. And so I think that's really important to me. And then I think just like collaboration, like just that spirit of collaboration, which, like with our leadership team, like obviously like we didn't choose, like Kevin brought some of us in, some people were already there, but I think he has a really strong belief in that anything worth doing in our organization is going to be a cross-functional effort. And if we don't model that at the leadership team level, and we don't build trust amongst ourselves to have difficult conversations with each other, challenge things, but also come together and work together to solve the things that we think are the biggest priorities, then we're not going to move the ball forward. And I think just having that inherent like belief that collaboration will get us to the end goal, I think is pretty important.
Let's say there was a word stock market, because I think there's certain words you buy low and you buy high, and you mentioned culture. And I think what I've seen from other businesses, and Billy and I have had a chance to see, I mean, courage is needed across any vertical. If there's fear, there needs to be courage. There needs to be the conversation. So culture as a word, I feel like people so don't get it, live it, or it's so overused for most people. It becomes an eye roll thing. So it's almost like, oh, this is a problem. We don't know how to live culture. And I think leadership too. Like I think some poor leaders turn leadership into cheerleadership, or like I'm the leader and you're following. The word that I love that we keep coming back to, and it's sort of silly to say this, but it's just back to team. It's team. It's like, are we a group or are we a team? There's a big difference between the two. And it sounds like you've been able to be part of some great teams, and Kevin sees the value in you. A couple weeks ago, we had Greg Creed on the show. You worked with him at Yum. Talk about smart, hot, and courage. There you go. It's my best Greg Creed. Does that go with you? Like, give me like a little bit of Greg, what's Greg like to work with? And then as you learn from guys like Greg, I'm assuming you had a good relationship with Greg. I probably should have asked you that.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Greg is the best.
So smart, hot, and courage. Does that go with you into this new world?
Oh, for sure. Like, I'm super lucky to have worked with or for a lot of incredible leaders, and I try to like steal things from each of them and then kind of like figure out how that works in my own style. And Greg's one of the absolute best people I've met, just people, and definitely one of the best leaders I've ever worked for. And what I appreciate about Greg is like that idea of smart, heart, and courage. He lives it. Like that's not just words, right? Like you meet him, you were telling me like, you met him and you just saw instantly, right? It just comes through, and you can't help but feel that energy from him. And, it's hard to do when you're the CEO of a large company like that, right? Like you've got these massive, mega global, huge global brands. but he made that company feel small, and he made, sure that like whether he was talking to a team member that worked in a Taco Bell or he was talking to the, president of a brand, he was the same guy, like every time. And that you notice that, and you see that come through. And like, one of the things I like, a story like about Greg that I'll never forget. Like, I mentioned we launched the Colonel Sanders campaign. We brought, the Colonel back, and Daryl Hammond was playing the Colonel. The initial reaction to that campaign was very polarizing. Like, there's some people that were like, oh, this is kind of fun and cool. And there are a lot of people that are like, man, this is creepy. Like, you guys brought this guy back, and like, who is this guy? Like, he had a weird laugh, and it was blasted everywhere, like big placements, like NBA finals, like all this stuff. So people were seeing it a lot. And I was in temp housing because I hadn't moved my family down to Louisville yet. I'd go home at night, I'd open Twitter, and I'd just see all these comments light up about creepy Colonel and like, what is KFC doing and all this stuff. And it was becoming like a big thing. And Greg, I think this shows like part of his leadership. He was asked during an interview about it. He was talking about Yum and the whole company, but he was specifically asked, what do you think about this Colonel Sanders campaign and how polarizing it is and some of the negative comments that you're seeing? And, that's a time where like as a CEO, you can make a bet, you can distance yourself from it and kind of give a non-answer, or you can really support your team and lean in. And he did the latter. And he said, he's like, I absolutely love it, because he's like, his point, and he's a marketer, which helps. And he said, as a marketer, you can market to love and you can market to hate, but the worst thing you can be is indifferent. And that's where KFC was before that. And we actually got people thinking about our brand again, and him giving us that air cover to then really push forward and continue to push ideas that were non-traditional and maybe a little outside the box made all the difference. And so I'll never forget that. And he's remained a great friend to me even since both of us have left Yum.
I mean, it's a great response, and it's a great response not because it's just a strategic response. It's his point of view, and I think we've seen now C-suites, when fear is winning, and a fear-based response is utilized, because you could have totally gone fear-based there, right? Not like this is one of his 10 commandments, like his actual principles of how he thinks about story. And so that's what I love the most about my conversation with him. And I told him, I was like, I wish I would have met you 20 years ago. It was like stepbrothers. Do we just become best friends? Because like that, like he's not afraid to be vulnerable. He's real, but he knows what works for him. You're becoming that person, by the way, for other people. You probably don't even realize it. People on your team, people that have worked for you. I'm not trying to make you feel uncomfortable, but it is the Courageous Podcast. Do you think about that? Like, people are learning from you. They're having conversations at other companies as they're starting to lead now. And it's like, well, I learned this from George, and by the way, Billy's had the luxury of knowing you for 20 years. I'm on minute 21 here pretty much, right? So, but there's already stuff that you've said that I know that I'll take with me, that I'll use. Like Billy and I are working with a client right now, and it's like, you don't think there's going to be a quote that says marketing brings them in and operations brings them back? And like, that is partnership. So thank you, I guess, for giving us some ammunition with our clients as well. And Billy, I mean, you've seen George evolve. Maybe this is a question for you. How far has he come?
It's funny. That's an interesting comment. The same guy that I met in that hallway, right, back in business school is sitting here right now, right? Like, I think there is something about at the core of who great leaders are, core of who creative thinkers are, people who are willing to identify how can I help my team, that group versus team mentality. I think that is something that can be developed, it can grow. But my personal takeaway is that George was that was there, right? And it was just a matter of being continuing to surround himself with those and being pushed in that way with other great leaders and other great team members who've helped him do that, And so, I think that it's been awesome to be able to sit on the sidelines, if you will, and cheer. And like George mentioned, I think there are a good number of us that came out of our business school class. You think back of people at a couple different organizations that you're like, oh, you're doing great stuff. And that, that's really rewarding to be able to say, these are folks that 20 years ago, I knew could do it. And it's just fun to watch and be able to say, that's when I go to a Chili's, when I eat a Reese's, when I, go have a Goldfish, whatever, right? Like there are some things, and George knows who I'm talking about, right? Of other people that it's like, yep, they've done some really, really neat stuff. So.
Yeah, it's so true. I'm really proud to be, like part of the Keenan Flagler class that we had, and like it's so cool like to just cheer on everybody doing great stuff, Ryan and Danielle and so many more. So it's like it's a lot of fun. And to Ryan, what you were saying about thinking about that, like I don't know, it's not something I think about all the time, but like I do. Like the big thing I think about is like, man, I am part of like other people's coaching trees, if you will, right? Like I am part of like, Kevin, obviously the most prominent for me because this is the fourth brand we've worked on, but so many other leaders from every stop along the way, like Greg and, Alex Tosolini and Ilanka Lavies at P&G and Jim Lanzone at Tinder, like all these people. And I just hope that like, it's like, I almost look at it as like, I've been lucky enough to like work for people like that and learn from them, that I just hope like I can be that for a few people also, right? And like be supportive of them, and whether it's when we're working directly together or even after we're not, that like I can still be that person to as many people as I can, just to kind of like pay that forward for the great leaders that I've had the chance to work for.
Not a surprise. This is are we done? Are we already here? I mean, how did this happen? Like, it was such a fast conversation, George. And like I said, I think I learned a ton from you. Also, I love the sales overnight, brand over time.
That's a Greg one. You can give that credit to Greg Cade.
So I should do it. And then in the Aussie accent, that's going to do it.
Yeah.
I got to give him, right. But just to learn a ton. And again, just keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for taking on these meaty projects, and you're living what we're talking about. I know you got an award from us earlier this year during Courage Week. I know there wasn't a big song and dance and celebration, but we honor that award. And so for those of you who are listening, stay like, just listen, like follow Greg's lead, stay curious, stay courageous, find that right team. Okay. Maybe order more fajitas. I think that would be a win as well. And George,
queso, right? Maybe get some queso. There's lots of things.
Absolutely.
Right.
Lots of things.
Whichever queso you want, we got it.
Well, yeah. All of the above queso is now on the menu.
Right,
I think
right.
there's a new
all
item coming.
All of them.
Right. And then George, I guess, look, if someone's listened this deep into the episode and they haven't like clicked on, other than my mother, then I think you deserve the honor of taking us home. So please, what's your last spiel on the need for courage or the need to address fear today?
Well, yeah, thanks guys for having me. This has been a ton of fun. And I just say like, I think like it's our job probably as marketers and leaders in this industry to like make it easier to make courageous decisions, and whether that's like coaching your teams on how to do that, whether it's enabling your agencies to do that or giving them the space to do that. I think it's kind of on us. And so I think just like having that mindset and figuring out ways you can make it more comfortable to do that, I think is a good thing to keep in the back of your mind. So it's been a ton of fun. I appreciate what you guys are doing to kind of bring this topic more to the forefront. Billy, it's awesome to connect with you and see what you're doing. I'm not surprised to see you doing something like this and inspiring people across the industry. So I appreciate the chance to chat with you guys.
Yeah, I want to give Billy some love. I've loved too, man. It's great to have you on the show with me, and it's sit back and hear the way you ask questions. It's like, I got to bring Billy on more of these. Yeah, even though you look like you work at J&J right now, which we love J&J.
It's all audio. I have a face for radio. We're all good. I can dress my corporate garb, and everything is good.
All right, folks, keep rooting for those marketers who make courage brands. Let's keep it rolling. Take care. Thanks, George.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Courageous Podcast. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts so more people can find us. See you again next week.